1 second.
All right, there we are. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Oh man, this is the first time that I've gone live on YouTube, and not my own YouTube. See, we have a lot of people in chat already, so let me do a little introduction here. I'm Ben Holmes. I'm a product engineer here at Warp, and also the lead of DevRel. Yes, just started doing that. And I'm hopping on here to show y'all everything that's going on in Agents 3, and it sounds like y'all are here to do the same. We have some warpers in the audience as well, so if anything goes wrong in this demo, I can yell at them to fix it quickly while I'm demoing. And I'll also, file a bug report and do all the proper things. You know how it is. Love the whiteboard? Well, thank you. Yes. Not paid to say that. Real compliment. So everyone that's in here, yeah, where are we chiming in from? We have Edinburgh, UK. We have India. We have Plymouth. We have, oh my gosh, everyone that I've just read is out of the country. That's crazy. And then, of course, we have New York and New Jersey. New York represent, all right. Brooklyn crowd? Anyone in the Brooklyn crowd out here? Got Kenya, Hungary, Poland, India as well, Chicago. Shout out to Chicago. Massachusetts, Amsterdam, another India, Italy, Colombia. Wow, Colombia. Wow. I'm not going to try a Spanish accent. The closest I come to Columbia is the capital of South Carolina, and that is nowhere near the same Columbia. We got Memphis. Shout out Memphis. Love that. I've flown into Memphis a few times. Got family around there. Got Hong Kong. You have Greece, France, South Africa, Germany, Brazil. Brazil mentioned. There we go. A wide hello. Mexico City, Ohio, Belgium, the center of Europe. I don't know if you can declare it the center of Europe. Is it like geographically the center of Europe? Because it might be. It actually might be. I have a buddy out in Belgium, and I keep just not finding the train route to go visit him, but maybe this is the sign that I need to finally go see Belgium, see what's going on out there. If there's warpers out there, it's worth it. We got Detroit, California, the classic. I can't believe it took this long to hear one California. Isn't SF the center of all this? We got St. Louis, New Zealand. Gosh, yeah. Crazy crowd. Why you don't have to turn your head to speak at the audience. I like doing a little side cam. It feels like I'm inviting you into my space a little bit. If I do it directly trucker cam in front of me, A, I can't see my monitor, and B, I don't know, it just feels like I can't really focus on y'all. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But always open to suggestions and switching things around. We have Virginia. Pleasure to connect with you globally. Yes, it is absolutely a pleasure to connect with you all globally. This is crazy. Okay. Well, we're here to be checking out Warp Agents 3, so let's not waste too much time. I'm going to be checking the chat as we go, obviously. So let me make sure my chat is properly split-screened here so that I can respond to y'all as we work. But let me switch over to the screen share to show y'all what we're cooking with. Great energy, yes. Thank you. San Francisco, there we go. We're looking for those San Francisco people. Oh, let me move my face. Let me move my face to the right. We definitely don't want that face on the left. There we are. Okay. I'm going to be facing the wrong direction. That's all right. Okay. So what I wanted to show y'all, plural version, yeah, y'all is perfect. That's how we need to do it. I'm from the South. I was saying y'all because that was our native tongue, not because it was something everyone else started saying. Okay. So y'all are here for Agents 3. I hope y'all saw the blast on Twitter, saw the early product demos, saw the docs that our team lovingly put together. There's so many resources already, but you can count this as one more resource to kind of crash course everything that's going on. This is indeed OBS, yes. I go very vanilla with my setup. I'm just using the tools that I've got. And I don't know, we used to do StreamYard and stuff like that. I like owning the setup, so if we wanted to do custom overlays, backgrounds, anything like that, we can evolve this stream with y'all. So yeah, this is a project that I have pulled up, and we're actually going to work on something together. That was my plan. Because, I mean, we can do all sorts of, contained examples that will definitely work in a sandbox, but it's much better if it's actually coming from something that I'm working on, something that's real, so that we can get some real-world examples going. So I'm going to try to demo a few things. You may have seen that we have planning available in Warp. It's always been there, but now planning is much easier to step into and a lot nicer to use end-to-end when you're building a feature. So we're definitely going to talk about planning. I used it on a stream a little bit ago, and I loved it, especially with Gemini 3. It's really good as a planning partner. And then we're going to check out code review. It's a cool little feature now where you can review the code that an agent writes, kind of like a PR review. And I'll try to demo full terminal use as much as I can, because full terminal use, I think, is like the crown jewel. Like, it's so warp, but also so different. And I just love showing it off. So we're going to find some time for that. But this is what I'm trying to do. And also, I should say, sound off with questions in the chat. Questions as we go, or just general questions about the launch or anything that you want to know about Warp if you're new here. I'll be trying to check it as much as possible. We also have some Warp engineers, so if anyone at Warp is watching, definitely get in the comments. That if you watch Dropout TV, you know what that means. Get in the comments, respond to people. I'll be checking as well, but we will try to keep the train going. So this is what I'm trying to work on here. It's this task to create a selector function. So let me back up and explain this a little bit, because it is a little bit in the weeds, especially if you don't use JavaScript or TypeScript. So I'm maintaining this library right now. It's called SimpleStack Store. And there's my face. Here's the library. So I built this simple state management library for React apps because there weren't enough state management libraries. I wanted to build my own. And you can see the basic API signature here, where you can create a store. It stores a bunch of data, and you can use the value inside of your components and bind it to whatever UI that you're rendering onto the screen. Oh, that's very simple. The part that's a little bit unique is being able to select parts of the store to observe parts of the store. So here we have this like store with a bunch of nested objects, and say I have a component that only cares about the title. So I only want to process that component when the title changes, and I don't want to process that component when other unrelated stuff in the store changes. Like if the authors change, my title shouldn't re-render because it doesn't need to do any work. So that's something that you can do here by calling .select. So this is like selecting a nested value out of the store and observing it inside of your component. It's a neat little feature. It's the reason that I made the library in the first place. I wanted to have something that lets me observe part of an object. And this has been going pretty well in our community, but there was one issue that came through that the more I dug into it, the more I really understood that this is a feature we should look at. So something they were looking at is, it's really annoying to select deeply nested values when you do this kind of signature, because you have to call .select every time, and the deeper the object gets, the crazier it gets. So they were proposing this library here, where maybe you can do like an arrow function. We also had another person in our community suggest maybe you can pass like an array of keys, and it'll like drill down into the object. And we went back and forth. Actually, on Tuesday, I went with Gemini to figure out what we could do here. And I landed on this API, down at the bottom here. Can we get to the very bottom of the thread? Yes, let's maximize that. So this is the API that we kind of landed on, is I would like an ability to select deeply nested keys with just an array. So here I wanted to select the notes and then select an ID within those notes. Instead of calling select multiple times, do it as an array. And another signature was derived. So like maybe you could select, I probably misspelled all sorts of things in this PR. Sorry, Mark. But you see here, we also have this little derived signature. This was something else people were suggesting, where maybe you have a potentially undefined value, and you want to do something very complicated in a selector function. This would be a way to do so using like a derived wrapper. So that's something that I wanted to implement as well. And I thought, well, I could implement this on my own, or I could implement it in public using some of the Warp agent features. I think that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully that explainer of the library made sense to y'all. I know that this is a little bit more technical than like spinning up an app for the first time or doing things from scratch. I'll do my best to clarify as we go. Just checking for questions. Is there a way to install and use custom slash commands in Warp, like MD files that are commands? Interesting. We don't have custom slash commands right now. Definitely has come up, because I think you can create like a markdown directory in some CLI tools. That could be interesting. That's definitely something I've thought about. And by the way, we do have a Warp community, so if you wanted to join that and throw your feature ideas there, I'll just throw a link in the chat directly. So let me just do that to make sure that we have that here. If I do Warp community, I know it's on warp.dev, so let me grab the link out of there. So if anyone has feature requests, definitely head over there, and I'll also try to like pull them out of here or have our engineers do that as well. Contact. Gosh, I swear I have a link for this. Warp community. There it is. Yes, I do. All right. If you want to join the Warp community, you can join over there. That's a place that we take in a lot of community feedback and stuff like that. And if you want to like detail a little bit more what you're looking for, it's also very helpful there. But I'm not completely, I'm not ignoring the issue. We're definitely gonna forward that along as well. But anyone who has feature requests, head over there. Okay, so let's say we want to implement this. I have the repo cloned off to the left, and I want to ask the agent how we might implement this. And I think we should take it one at a time, because these are two different API signatures. I feel like I want to work on this one first because it's using the same extension function, and then we can figure out what this derived function should work like. So here's the signature that I want to do, and I'm just going to ask it, you know, what would that look like? And I have some profiles set up, by the way. This is a really smart power feature. If you don't know about it, you can set up profiles inside of your agent settings. So if you go to AI, you have this profiles panel. And I've set up a few profiles because I'm switching between models quite a lot. Default, I just have set to our auto model, which is going to give you like a good answer for basically anything you ask. But I have some custom ones in here. I use fast whenever I'm using like a CLI tool. Oh, it shows revoked. That does not sound right. We can definitely check on that. If anyone in the Warp team is watching, definitely check if that link's working correctly, but that should be the one that we have publicly available. I'll double check if there's supposed to be something better. But yeah, I have multiple profiles. I use fast whenever I'm running like a shell command because I just want super snappy responses. Also for demoing Warp for the first time, fast is really good. I have that bound to Haiku, which is the balance of fast but also smart enough that I like. And then I have smart. I switch over to smart whenever I'm doing planning for features. And right now I'm test driving Gemini 3 Pro, but there are all sorts of models. Some of these are internal, but one of them that I definitely call out is Gemini 3 Pro, also GPT 5.1. I feel like they're on a very even playing field right now if you want to try either of those for planning or more involved tasks. So I'm going to use smart right now. That's what I have set up. And I'm going to ask it, I want to, well, let me use voice. We love using voice. I want to introduce a new signature for the .select function. Right now, it just takes in an individual object key, and you need to chain multiple selects together if you want to select nested objects. I would like to introduce an array syntax as well. So if you pass an array of keys, then it will drill down multiple selects deep, just for aesthetic reasons, to make it a little bit easier to use. It should be type safe, and it should also respect undefined values and prevent users from selecting things unsafely, depending on their TypeScript settings. Okay. That's kind of verbally what the issue was already describing. So let's see how it did. This is using WhisperFlow, by the way, so it's pretty accurate. You'll notice it even used like backticks. It called it .select. So nice. I don't really have to edit that. And I would like to introduce an array syntax. So it will draw multiple. Yep. And this is where I would probably slot in some examples. So we have an example here already where it would work like this. And we'll do the before and after of what we're looking for. So normally it would be something like this, notes.select ID. And it would be before, after. The existing type signature should continue to work as well. Make a planning document with a couple implementation options. This is something I like to do when I'm not totally certain what the implementation should look like. So here I'm going to say make a planning document with a couple options that we can review, and then we can work on the plan together. You can also force a plan in Warp by putting /plan at the start of your queries. You notice this nice little highlighting that shows you, yeah, we're going to ask it to make a nice plan for you. But sometimes I just like it to make a planning document by asking in plain English. So that's what I'm going to do here. And then we're going to let Gemini roll. And it will give you reasoning traces as it goes. I notice Gemini likes to reason pretty much every step of the way. So you'll notice a lot of thought for 1 second, thought for a couple seconds. It's very thorough. It's a very thorough model for sure. And, okay, it looks like we don't have any questions yet, but I'm sure we'll have a few more questions once the plan appears. And in the meantime, this is a bit of an ambitious thing, but we are here to demo all of the warp features. So let me see if I can do something fancy. Let me see if I can do something fancy here. Let me resolve this thread. I'm looking at my linear board off to the side here. This will make sense in a moment. And is there something very simple that I could look at? There are some copy changes we could absolutely do. Ghosted text is a really good one. Okay, and let me hide my board here. Perfect. Okay, so off to the side here, because it's planning, I'm actually going to demo another feature at the same time. So another thing that is bundled into the Warp Agents launch is integration with all of your task boards. So we have Linear in Slack out of the box right now. There's documentation on how to set this up, but you can now invite Warp into spaces outside of the Warp terminal. So if you wanted to, for example, get a task done inside of Linear, you can do that. And it looks like this was finished up above. I'll review that in a moment. But if you wanted to multitask a little bit, maybe you have some backlog issues that you don't have time to look at because you're working on something a little bit beefier, and you want to offload all of that to Warp. So this is a very simple version where I'm just going to @warp. You can also attach them to an issue. And I'm going to ask it to implement this unrelated feature to what we're doing right now, just to show y'all that Linear can run in the background while you're doing your more important stuff. So here I'm going to tell Warp, add this text similar to the /compact command. It should say, I actually don't know what the ghost text should say. So this feature that I'm working on in the background right now, whenever you do /plan, I would love for a little bit of ghost text in here to show you what you would type out. So when you do /compact, you'll notice that this is another command that we've introduced to compact a conversation. And you can see it gives you a little bit of instruction on what to do. So I could say describe what you want to, describe what you want to plan. We can work on better copy. But let's say we do something like that. So in the background here, I'm going to kick off a little agent, and then we're going to go back to what we're doing. This is something I'm doing more and more at work, where if there's something very simple, I'll kick it to a background agent like this, or Slack agent, Linear agent. I don't know what copy we use, but you get it. And then I'll go back to whatever I'm doing. So we can see here, okay, sometimes it says stop responding and then responding once it picks up the queue. There we are. And now it's just going to work on this stuff in the background. So we can just check on it later. How do I get into that Warp Slack channel? Yeah. Is anyone in the chat able to... okay, working on the link. Cool. So Olivia will share the link if we're having issues there. But anyone can join. It's our preview community. So if you wanted to try the Warp preview build, see features before they come out to the general public, you can head over there. And we also use it as our feedback channel for kind of our insiders and all that. Is there a reason not to give it context with the GitHub issue? You mean like literally just copy pasting the GitHub issue? There's no real reason not to, honestly, because I did describe it pretty clearly here. I honestly could have just copied a link, and I could have instructed it to do so. I decided to list out the instructions myself, but there was really no reason. You could paste in a GitHub link, and maybe we'll do that for the second task if we find time. Okay, and I'll at least demo that this is how you can follow along with Warp. So you'll notice here, I have this Warp task that's running in the background right now, and you can view it in your Warp terminal itself or on the web if you want to. So I'm going to view it on the web just to show you that this exists. And believe it or not, this is Warp fully end-to-end. This is a WASM build of Warp. This has existed for a long time, and now we're leveraging it for live sessions. So if you ever wanted to check in on what Warp's doing, this is not just like a list of commands that it's running. This is Warp, like full body, this is everything, but connected to a remote worker over SSH. So you can actually like see what it's doing. You can respond to it. You can click on all the same UI elements that you normally would, including long-running commands. So you can see here it's analyzing the results of a cargo check call, which is very cool. You can take over control at any point, which is also very nice. We see here right now it's just kind of in the setup phase, or maybe it finished because it was simple enough. I think it did. So there you go. Very cool. So we're going to let that simmer in the background while we work on this. Sorry if it feels like we're being a little jumpy, multitasky, but that is kind of the flow that Warp encourages. You can multitask with some stuff in the background and some stuff in the foreground. So let's hop back over here now that the plan is done. We can see here the select method only accepts a single key. That is the problem. The proposed change allowed deep selection. Iterative chaining, okay, interesting. So if array is array, return key or path dot reduce. I like it. Reuses immutable logic. Fragile with optionals, yes. So if state.a is undefined, the first will return a store without a select method because it treats it as a primitive. The chain breaks, throwing an error at runtime for valid types that happen to be undefined. I don't know about the overhead. I'm very curious about that. Interesting. So it's recommending something that I would have done option 1 if I was just implementing by hand. But let's see what option 2 is. Implement a true deep selector that constructs a single store directly connected to the root, handling path traversal manually. What does that mean? Can return a valid store even if intermediate values are currently undefined. The store will return undefined from get. Better performance, no intermediate store types. Enables safe navigation. Requires implementing recursive immutable updates. Okay, explain. All right, so we have select function. It can return a path or a path value, type helper, to ensure safety. All right, so this is going to ensure that the array is type safe if you're selecting deep stuff. And let's see here. Refactor select to handle arrays. Yep, reduce the path array against the state. Okay. I'm actually going to ask it to describe. Oh, and here's a new thing. We actually suggest a prompt if you want to execute the plan directly. But here I asked for a couple options. So I'm going to ask it, can you give more detail on option 2? Maybe an example implementation? I'm not sure how that compares to option 1. So it has the plan in context, and you can visit it at any time. I can even close the plan if I want to, and there's this little view plan button to look at whatever plan is currently in your conversation, which is so nice. And also up here, you can click to see the current draft. You'll notice that there are multiple versions, so if we decide to edit this plan, we can see previous versions, roll back to previous versions, whatever we want to do. So right now, it's going to look through that plan, and it's going to decide what we want. And maybe at the same time, I can check on that linear issue, just see what's going on. Or it'll just add detail to the plan for me. How about that? Man, I should just be more patient. So you can see right here, it made a V2 of the plan with more detail on option 2. Love that. So we can go back to V1 to see what it was originally. V2 is showing us this new bit of detail. Very cool. How would you use... I'm just looking at questions here if there's any. How would I use a custom MD as a prompt? Do you mean I should refer to it in my prompt and indicate to use it as context? Yes. So if you had an MD file that you just wanted to bring into your prompts, you could @mention the file. That's always a feature. So if you just wanted to say like @ files and folders and then type out the name of the file, you could certainly do that, and that would work great, as long as it's somewhere inside of your current working directory. If it's outside of your working directory, you can always just copy the markdown directly, or if you give it an absolute path, it will find it. So if you wanted to, you could get a little bit fancy and like autocomplete the full qualified path and then just paste it in. So it's able to read whatever's on your system, I guess, is my long-winded way of explaining that. You can also ask it to convert your markdown file into a plan, so then you get this nice UI, and it'll just paste it in. Okay, so let me look at this implementation. We have get selected, and I notice it's not doing syntax highlighting here, but I've noticed other models do. We should look at that. It's something to do with Gemini not giving us syntax highlighting, but okay. We have get selected, current, for key of path, if that, okay. And then we have this. Yeah. We reach the target, apply the setter. If a parent in the chain is missing. Okay, so it's skipping the recursion, I guess. So it's saying update deep. All right, interesting. Immutable update, clone, and set. All right. I kind of see what it's doing. I don't fully know if this is going to compile and run how I expect, but I get it. Yeah, so let me see. Solves this. Let me see. Is fragile because it relies on intermediate stores being valid. If store select returns a store with an undefined state, that store correctly disables its own select method, breaking the chain. Yeah, but I kind of prefer that. By creating a single store that manages the full path, safely traverses the path if it hits undefined halfway, it just returns undefined instead of crashing. Yep, ensuring all parent objects are cloned correctly. I've included the code sketch in the updated plan. Okay, I mean, I get what it's doing. So, like, if we wanted to catch undefined, then we could do it this way. And if we don't care, we actually want it to crash at runtime, then we could just do the normal thing. I feel like chaining is fine, because I am okay with it crashing at runtime because your type safety should prevent you from doing that. But, I don't know. I guess it does, but I like that it gave me 2 options. I actually hadn't considered whether option 2 would be a better. I think I'm going to go with it. I think I'm going to go with what the LLM recommends here, and we can always tweak it later. Okay, I dig it. Implement option 2. So there we go. We're going to implement option 2, y'all, and we're going to see how that looks. And this is going to be exciting because then we get to see some code that it authored. We get to do a bit of code review as well. And I'm going to set it to auto approve just to see how it works. It'll also create a to-do list when it starts working on a plan. At least it's prompted to do so. It's going to read through our index test files so that it can see how things work right now. Can we focus this session on the new functionality instead of deep technical architecture? Sorry. We are definitely trying to focus on that. I just wanted to have enough context to at least explain this. So my workflow is I actually look through the plan to figure out what the architecture should be, and then I try to let it run. But it sounds like a couple people are agreeing on that. So let me just continue with the features then. No problem, y'all. No problem. So we'll let that run. And I'm also going to stand up a test application that we'll use to look at this. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to head over to projects, and I'm going to create something inside of here. And I'm actually going to ask the agent to do it. So let me say, create a sample application with React plus feet using the interactive REPL, CLI. So let's run that. This is how we're going to test our changes in a moment. And I just wanted to show you all how this works. So I'm forcing it to use the interactive CLI because I want to show you what it can do. So this is a mode that you'll enter whenever Warp encounters a command that requires input from you or from the agent. Normally, it would just get stuck at this phase. If you've ever asked Claude to run anything that has a pager in it, for example, or requires input for a project name, it can get stuck. It can try to hand it back to you, but it certainly can't work through the command autonomously. But Warp certainly can. So you can see right here what's going on is it discovered that this is something that requires input, and it's asking me if it can start running commands for me. So let me show you a few options in here. You can accept when you want it to run something, or you can set it to auto approve if you just want to let it run from here on out for the rest of the session, which is very cool. And you can also refine it if you feel like it should be running a different command here. I actually could do that if I wanted to. So I could say, create a project called store test. And then it will go off and do that instead. So let's see what that looks like. All right. Allow. Oh, let's type in the letter K. There we go. There we are. All right, so store test. And then it's just going to choose some options for me. This does seem a little bit contrived, but perhaps... Oh, shoot. What happened there? So it set the name, and then Vite decided to not respect it. Dang it. All right, run it again. There we are. So now it's going to select a framework here, and we're going to see what it ends up doing. So I'm going to set it to auto-approve to choose whatever options make the most sense. I asked for React, so it's going to select that. But maybe there's a few options in the CLI that I don't know about. Like, there's a lot of options there. I'm just going to let it choose the recommended options. Like, oh, I think TypeScript's right. I think roll down is right. I think we should use PNPM because that's your manager. And off we go. It's a very cool feature. It's a way to automatically let it run through CLI commands. And because y'all are asking me to run through the features a little bit more, let's go ahead and do that. So let me do one other demo to show y'all what's going on with the interactive shell. This is an example that I love to show off, so I'm going to show it off to you. If we do create a demo SQLite database with a notebook, user, and tags, setup, then we'll write queries together. This is another example that I've been using a lot in my own work, where I need to do a little bit of data analysis or data massaging on a SQL instance. Postgres is usually what I'm connecting to, but SQLite is something that I can pull up without an environment, so that's what I'm showing off here. And when you do that, it will start up a command. Yeah, all right. Use the interactive REPL, because I'm kind of asking it to do that sort of thing. And here it's running the localhost server for example project already. We'll check on that in a moment. But you can see here, you can also use it as a SQL buddy, which is a lot of fun. So if I wanted to say, for example, create a few example notebook and user entries. This is a convenient way if you're trying to seed some data into a project so that you can make sure your data model's working correctly. You can just do that. So here I can ask it, hey, insert some example records, and off it goes. So now it's inserted some usernames and some emails, and it's also inserting some notebooks for me that are connected to those users. So now we actually have like some example data for an application. So there we go. And you can see that it verifies the result, and everything looks right to me. So it's selecting the title and the user ID from the notebook. So maybe I wanted to ask like, how many entries are tagged as, well, what tags did it generate? I didn't really give it that many specifics here. So it's asking for a few things. How many notebooks belong to me, Alice? Let's say my name is Alice. My name is not Alice, but I've actually done this a few times where I made some example data and I can't find all the things associated with my user, and it can work through all of the connections in order to join related tables so that it can find where that entry lives. So you can see here now I have 4 notebooks. There we go. So there, and it gives me the titles, which is very useful information. So that's another use case that I've been using a lot, is I just need to debug what's happening in my staging database. I need to see if the entries that I added are present inside of that staging database, and then off I go. I could even demo this, and I'm going totally off the rails because I am adapting. I'm adapting to what y'all are asking for, and you're asking to just see the features back to back. So let's do that. So it can create React apps for you. It can do a SQLite database. It can do plans. Let's jump into code review just to see how that works. So let me go ahead and full screen this and check that out. This is what it wrote for us. I won't go too deep on the details, but I'll at least give it a scan to see if there's anything to review. So this is our code diff view. This is something that you'll be plopped into whenever an agent writes code. You'll notice that it automatically opened the code review panel because we set it to auto approve. We have enough room on our screen where it's not going to squish everything too narrow. It's just going to show off to the side everything that's going on. And all of the diffs are in like an interactive UI. So you're not using your terminal or CLI commands. You're just able to look through all of the files that changed. And you can also look at both the uncommitted changes and diffs against other branches. So if you're working on a multi-commit PR, you can look at diffs against your main line, or you can look at whatever you're doing in your current commit. Very convenient when you're ready for PR review. And these are the changes that it decided to make. So we have our index route over here. It added a lot of inline comments here, which makes me a little bit concerned. I may ask it to clarify or remove those. But let's go ahead and full screen it to see what we can do. So we have this deeply nested type. We have this right here where it's using an unknown key. I don't love that. So we may ask it to change that. If we hit a primitive, we return undefined, exception at the path. Oh, gosh. Yep. Interesting. Oh, boy. That is quite a lot going on there. And then we say if is state primitive. Yes. We have set selected. If you don't understand what's going on, don't worry. I do. So I'm going to try to leave some quality comments so that we can see how that feature works. And then we have reach the target. Do we need to cast as any here? Maybe we can use a type generic, right? And if you have feedback for the agent, you can leave it like a PR comment. That's really the beautiful thing about this. I've seen a lot of tools introduce like automatic code review, and like that can be useful, but it's not quite what I want. Usually I'm trying to critique the code that the agent wrote so I can get it ready for a PR. And the easiest way to do that is to just leave a comment on the diff directly. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm looking at this line number, I'm going to leave a comment, and you can look at all the comments you're leaving down here in the little drawer. So we can see we have this comment here. We can edit or remove it if we need to. And I'm just going to keep scrolling through and add some more comments. So the rest of this file is fine by me. It looks like we have a warp MD from earlier. I'm actually going to discard this. This is something else you can do, by the way. You can discard changes outright, or you can stash them for later. Very convenient. I noticed some Git reviews don't have a stash button, and we do. So I'm going to discard that because I don't want that. And then I'm going to look at the index test file to see if it covered all the test cases. So over here we have like that. It looks like it's testing. Can we do that? No problem. We have user address city. Should handle indices on the path. I like that. So something I don't love. Okay, should return undefined safely if it's broken. Okay, so we have select user.name, and let's say user is potentially undefined. Like, should that break or should that work? Can you also add a test to ensure .set does not throw in this case? That's something that I was wondering about, so I'm going to leave a comment on that as well. And the rest of this, I'm going to say looks good. So I'm going to send both of these over to the agent, and then you get a nice little preview of everything that's going on. With the full screen button, by the way, if you want to see what the full comment was. But it lists them out in these neat little charms, so it's easier to review. And off to the side here, I'm also going to add all of the current changes. It's a great way to make sure that everything is kind of in line. Ooh, what is going on there? What is going on with that example directory? Let me just git add that. All right, cool. So I've added the changes that we already have, and then it's going to make some new changes on top of it. Yeah, it is really nice, isn't it? It's just natural, because all the other ways you get to like dump context into an agent is like, I guess you can highlight, and we do also have that, by the way. So if there's like a one-off question you want to ask, you can highlight a part of a diff, add it as context, and then write out a query. That's really nice. But comments are a way to address multiple different lines all at once and then let it go off and do its thing. So here I'm going to let it address both of those comments. And just to follow up, let me first look at all the questions in here to make sure we've addressed everything. And I'll check on that linear task to just show y'all what it looks like when linear finishes. Dun, dun, dun. I think I saw Zach mention, we can now use Slack to send comments to an instance of Warp. Yes, we can. Thus giving it tasks to do while someplace else. That is very true, yes. You can tag Warp on a Slack thread, which is a really cool little feature. Let me see if I can pull something up in our work Slack without completely doxing important details. Because I actually do remember us having a conversation where we tagged in Warp to see what it would say. And you can set up these integrations with our create environment command. I'll go ahead and link to... Did we already link the docs? Because that would be great. Yeah, we did. All right, so click on that integrations doc if you actually want to connect your own Slack group. It's really convenient. So I'm going to let this guy run in the background. Looks like it's running all of the test cases, which is great. And I'm going to see if we have any examples in Slack. If not, I can totally just make one myself because I asked for something earlier today. So let me actually do this. Let me do this. Can I full screen a Slack thread? I can open it in a new window. Perfect. That's a safe way to show it to y'all. Okay, so this is a Slack thread that we had going. And we were discussing adding a new command to the deny list, which is exit. Because we noticed that in an SSH section, it might accidentally exit Warp, which is something that we don't want to do. So I also linked to a user that accidentally discovered it the hard way, and I would love to fix that. And in here, I'm just going to ask Warp. So you can @Warp, or we call it Warpy internally. You're going to see Warp. I'm sorry y'all get the corporate name and we get the cute name, but that's just how it is. So we can tag in Warp, and we can say, can you add, or honestly, address this issue. You don't really have to say, because it's going to have the whole thread in context. And once Warp picks up that job, it's going to just pop in and start doing stuff for you. So there we go. Warp has started working on this task. And you can also view that in a live session if you want to. Or you can just let it run and then keep talking on Slack, which is what I tend to do. It'll check back in with you as soon as a PR is ready. So if you're wondering what the Slack experience looks like, this is what it looks like. Oh, and there's also a view agent button. Amazing. So I can show that to y'all as well. Let's go ahead and open this one in the Warp app so you can see what that looks like. So this is what happens if you hit open in the Warp app whenever you're looking at a Slack thread. Here's what you get. So we can see here it's going to clone our Warp internal code base into a Cloud Runner, and it'll just start working. It's just so freaking cool. And you'll also notice this little live cursor here. If you have multiple people watching a session, then they can all interact with the agent at the same time, and you can see each other's cursors. It's kind of a fun thing. But you can see here it's going to spin up that cloud task, and any Cloud Runner that you have in your local Warp instance is going to have this little cloud icon, so it's easy to call them out. So yeah, here it is running in Slack. So freaking cool, isn't it? So what have we demoed so far? We demoed walking through a CLI to set up a project for you. We demoed looking through a SQLite database to seed data. We demoed plans. We also demoed a little bit of comment review. And we demoed Slack and Linear. I think we hit all the core components. So I will try to open it up for questions here if anyone's wondering. But now that this is done, let me show you what the UI looks like when you address a comment. So we can see here, it'll tell you what comments were addressed as they are addressed, which is very convenient. So you can definitely be sure that it's completed everything that you've tagged it on. And we also get our to-do list fully checked off. We get our refactors called out here. So we can see here it's checking if it's of type function. It's casting it as a function instead of type any, which is what I would prefer. And it looks like we also had this right here. It's adding in our test case. Perfect. So it's actually saying that it will throw in that case. That's interesting. So I need to decide if this is the API that I truly want. I think it is, though. And it ran the test cases for us. So convenient. So not only did it implement the fix, it also wrote a test suite that I would agree with and ran it and ensured everything passed. Awesome. So there you go. What's the best model for each use case? Such a good question. It changes so often, doesn't it? So this is why I have multiple profiles set up. And if you're a power user, I encourage you to do the same, because profiles are a way to kind of bind the name of a model to the use case that you might have in mind. So let me actually pull up my model selector to show you what I'm using right now. I would definitely suggest auto just for anything that you're doing, because this is like the let the Warp team vet all of these models and decide for me what the best one is going to be. So if you're using Warp for the first time, put it on auto responsive. You're going to get high quality responses, and it's the best way to make sure Warp works well for you. You can also try out auto efficient. This is another model type. And this is going to hand over to models that might be slower, like maybe GPT-5 with some reasoning attached, but it will be more token efficient, which is very important, depending on how you're using Warp, how you're budgeting your time, all of that stuff. So auto-responsive. If you want like my take on what I really love, I like using Haiku for demos because it just gives you an answer so much faster. So it's almost magical to just watch it do things in real time. I didn't even use Haiku for these demos, but I normally would just to have that fast response. And right now I'm trialing Gemini 3 if I really want to work on code and planning, which is what we were demoing over here. So where we were doing code review and where we were writing out multiple options, Gemini's really freaking good. So I would suggest making a profile called Smart with Gemini. I don't know. I know that we're very model agnostic, though, so use what you want. I know some employees are using GPT 5.1, and they're like, Ben, you gotta switch to 5.1. It's better at planning. Like, I didn't know that. Maybe I can go ahead and change this profile to use 5.1 for a week and see how I like it. So the beauty of Warp is you can just use it however you prefer. And putting it behind a profile name makes it easy to remember where everything is. Rules and profile. Possible? Interesting, yeah. I've heard this request before. So if people don't know what rules are, let me explain them a little bit. Rules are global if you're using Warp, or a Warp MD is where you can make them scope to a project. To look for your rules, you can just use it from the command palette. Here I hit Command P. So if you hit Command P, you can do anything in Warp. And I'm going to ask it to open the rules panel. And these are all the rules that I have set up. And you can set up rules that are global. So all of these are based in there. Oh, it looks like we have project-based rules as well. I didn't realize that we actually let you do that inside of here. That's so nice. But yeah, it'll link to your Warp MD if you want to do things that are project-based. The one thing we don't have is profile-based, though. So everything that we have in a profile is listed here. And at the moment, that's going to be apply code diffs, read files, execute commands. You can decide how much autonomy an agent has. So for example, on the fast model, because I don't trust it as much, I made sure that it's not set to always allow. But because smart is a trustworthy model, I have this set to always allow code diffs. So that way I don't have to hit the auto approve button. I just know it's going to do a good job. Always allow code diffs when you're in this mode. And you can also change your allow and deny list if that's something you prefer. Whether you want to sync plans to Warp Drive, that's a cool feature. I should talk about that. But we don't have rules. We could totally have rules. We've also talked about prompts, like a custom prompt window to describe how that profile should operate, some of its preferences. Maybe you have something that's more scoped, like, debugging expert. You may have heard of subagents doing a similar sort of thing. I've heard people using profiles that way. Would be cool if you could have some more customization. I like that. And if you want to join our Slack community, you can also leave feedback there. But I have heard this feedback enough. I know we're tracking it. How do you feel about the cost-efficient model? I think it's good. I think it's quite good. Well, I know what it is behind the covers. I know that it's routing to GPT, the latest, as of the last time I tried it. May be different now. It may be using Haiku depending on your question. I think it's pretty good. I am a little biased because I'm not thinking about, okay, token for token, is this giving me maximum value? I'm a little bit floatier with it, where it's like, okay, this cost me a bit more tokens, but the quality was higher, and I'm willing to pay for that, no problem. So I haven't been switching to cost efficient for my day-to-day work, but to understand what our users are doing, I probably should, just to see. But I have at least used the underlying models before. I've used Haiku to do coding tasks for a week. I've used GPT 5.1 for a week, or more. I actually used it for a long time. And they're both great models. I don't think you can really go wrong with any of them. I just have very slight preferences towards certain things, and I've tuned my profiles to reflect that. In millions of tokens, how much is... Yeah, I know that we had an equivalent. Olivia, didn't we try to translate credits to conversations had or something like that? Like, I remember hearing the average for users was something around like 15 tokens for a quality conversation. So if you want to think about it that way, you can think like 1,500 divided by 15. You could have like 100 conversations on that. And like, not just how do I use Git conversations, like actually coding conversations end to end. You can see that this one took a little bit more because I'm using an expensive model. This one took 50 credits all told. So this is a more expensive conversation. If you want to have a bunch of conversations like this one, then this is a rough estimate. And we now show your full usage in here, which is super nice. So if you're wondering, like, what was the full breakdown? What is everything that we did? How many models did I use throughout the course of this conversation? How much did that latest response cost me? You'll notice that the code review actually cost me some more money because it ran the test suite and other things. I'd be very curious why the last response cost me a bit more. It does compound the more responses that you have, so you need to think about that. And then you get some latency times. This is a very new feature, which is lovely. So if you're trying to compare which model is going to get me answers quicker, you can evaluate your last response time to get a better feel for that. So all that's inside of here if you're ever curious. But this is how much it cost me. Apparently it cost me 14 tokens up until the end of the plan. And then as soon as we started doing some more work, it cost me more because it compounds. So just something to be aware of, I guess. What was the last question here? Millions of tokens for Claude, 4.5 for OpenAI. Yeah. It really varies. It really varies. I would say if you're thinking cost, if you're just thinking cost, OpenAI's 5.1 is gonna save you some money. In my experience, it uses about half of the same amount of tokens. Claude 5.1, I assume it means Sonnet. If you use Haiku, that's another option that will go towards the end of speed, but also be more token efficient there. So try it out. Use the credit viewer. Be really cognizant of everything that it's doing. Do some trial runs. Maybe do the model switcher a little bit. Just see where you end up. That's all I ask. And only do like one conversation, you know? I'm not asking you spend a bunch of money on Warp to find out. Like, no, I give you a rough feel, but if you want to be scientific about it, definitely encourage you to do that. And if you want to share your results around the community or other places, I'm sure people would benefit. So definitely go investigate that. By the way, you all are doing great work. Well, thank you, sir. I'm glad you came by. If I ask Warp to make a new function or test, it's surprisingly economical. Fractions of a credit. If I ask it to review or assess some code, it is more expensive. Hundreds of credits. That is quite high. I don't think I've run into that. I have run into like up to 100 credits, but some people keep these things running for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, so it all depends. Learning coding again, it's been 2 years since I stopped. Well, welcome back in. You've entered a very different world. I think 2 years is the right amount of time to have your brain reset to try out some new patterns. And I mean, this is completely different than how I was coding at the start of the year. So wild time. Welcome in. It does outperform. Yeah, man. We're on the T-Bench ranks. I'm proud to say we hit our highest T-Bench score, and I think the highest T-Bench score using Gemini. We hit 58%, which is a step above Codex. It's huge. We're a step above Codex using Gemini with Warp. So if you're trying to do some intensive coding tasks, we're on the benches. We're on the benches. A lot of love in the chat. I really appreciate that. For DevOps and coding, yes, I'm looking for more examples of DevOps, sir. If you don't mind sharing, like, what sort of things are you doing relating to DevOps? Because I've been fascinated with the way Warp can SSH into something and let the agent sort of follow you into that workflow. I demoed that a bit by SSHing into, like, a SQLite file. You can also SSH into Postgres, but you could go into a Docker container as well. Like, you can use Warp to navigate around a Docker container and figure out what's going on in there. In fact, that's what this Cloud Runner is doing. When we asked it to do something in Linear, we were SSH'd into a Docker container that Warp owns. So what you're looking at here is how Warp feels when you're SSH'd into something else, which is very cool. Oh, and you can also fork a task locally if you're at all curious. Like, can I hand off from a remote agent to my local machine so I can continue the PR from there? You absolutely can. You can hit fork task in order to do that. When is Codex coming? It's a great question. So I think it deserves a little bit of explanation. So Codex, from my understanding, is like a very fine-tuned model that's built for like the Codex harness and the Codex way of working. And so because it feels a little bit more dialed in, to a particular harness, it's something that we have been trying to be smart about. We don't want to just put Codex into Warp and ship it. Because when we did that, we realized, oh shoot, it doesn't know how to hold our harness very well. It seems like it's fine-tuned for a different environment. So we're going to have to write some more specific prompting or tool calls, etc., to make Codex specifically work. But 5.1 works great with our harness, and so we ship that right away. We do a quality review before we just ship, and the rest of it just goes in the quality evaluation phase. So I am curious, like, are you using Codex? You having a good time with it? Is there something about Codex that 5.1 doesn't do? Because if there are clear reasons where it's like, yeah, Codex is a clear step change above 5.1 and here's why, then maybe we start messing with our harness a little bit to see if we can use Codex more powerfully. Could I compare? 5.1 Pro, yeah, I would love for the API version of Pro to come out. Just saw it this morning. It's only in the ChatGPT shell, I'm pretty sure, but we would love to see that in Warp. It seems so cool. Google's anti-gravity. Well, I don't have anti-gravity installed, but I can at least talk about my experience just looking at the community using this stuff. So anti-gravity, if people don't know, is a IDE that Google put together, and it is a fork of Windsurf. At least that's what we've noticed through, like, what other influencers have noticed by kind of, like, reverse engineering it. So it's a little bit similar to, like, a VS Code fork. And the claim to fame is its connectivity with your browser, being able to use Vision to see what's going on in a web page. And I feel like that is a really interesting aspect of anti-gravity that Warp isn't super focused on. Now, you can use Warp with your browser if you're using an MCP server. I've heard of this recently, where if you go on... Ooh, I need a new browser tab. Let's go over here. 1 second. Ah, gosh, come on. Come on, boy. There we are. I messed up all my screens. There we go. Okay, there is a MCP extension, so MCP Chrome DevTools. This is a thing that you can go look at. And this is a way to give some connectivity between Warp and your browser so that it can work on task with you. This is obviously a more manual process, so you'll need to, like, set up this MCP and make sure Warp is talking to it, while anti-gravity literally, like, I think it owns the browser, or at least connects to Chrome really closely. So that is one area where anti-gravity is really cool. It's like if you're doing a bunch of back and forth design work, it's definitely going to do it. I think where Warp shines is, very general purpose tasks. Everyone in the audience is doing different things with Warp, and I love it. But Warp is powerful if you leverage your CLI, if you really use your terminal tools, your coding tools, all that stuff. So if you are reaching for CLIs to do things like looking at your Postgres instance, or scaffolding out new projects, or connecting to the cloud, all of those things are very unique to Warp and not something that you're going to see in anti-gravity. So if any of these things appeal to you, it's only in Warp, man. You got to try out Warp to do that stuff. But I am fascinated with how Google is going a little bit further with Vision to see how we can get agents to have a bit more autonomy in like a web browser setup. And at the very least, you can use the same model that they're using, Gemini 3 Pro, inside of Warp. And our harness is really, really good at using Gemini. I've heard people run into errors and other things in other tools. But in Warp, I have hit 0 errors using Gemini. Like, it doesn't mess up the tool calls. It doesn't even get compiler errors, which is crazy. Like, this whole session we did, none of these have an X. I'm used to seeing at least one red X that said it ran the wrong thing. But this entire session is just check marks. On a very complicated task. Like, y'all were telling me to stop. This is too much in the weeds. Yeah, Gemini can go really in the weeds. That's cool. Sorry I'm talking about it so much, but that is, like, if you're looking at anti-gravity, you're comparing how you might use this new model, I think Warp's a great place to use it. What were other questions? Codex does code well. I'm not sure if it's better than 5.1, but it does code well, yeah, previous versions, and I think it's faster. I have heard that, where it has a sliding scale of reasoning to be a bit faster. That's a good reason we might want to investigate it a bit more. And some people just ask because Codex has the word code in the name. Like, that's the more coding-focused model. Why don't you have the coding-focused model? At the very least, that's a reason. Because it's expected, it's high-performing, we should do something. So good suggestion. Should be able to control other providers while inside Warp, like opening Auto, Claude Code, Codex, Droid, etc. inside. Yeah, 20 years in IT. I ditched Cursor. Yes, welcome. I do think like a smart terminal is a better match for DevOps, as someone who doesn't do a lot of DevOps, but I do see it as a stronger match. So I'm glad some people are connecting the dots. It's so cool. How does Chrome DevTools MCP compare to Playwright MCP? It's a great question. I've used the Playwright MCP, but not the Chrome DevTools. I only draw that comparison point because it's similar to what Anti-Gravity is doing. Not the same, but similar. So I don't know. I would love to evaluate these tools and figure it out because they're both really fascinating. I think Playwright MCP is kind of running away with it right now as the way to control browser environments. So if you don't know, this is also an option. If you wanted to have the agent write code that will orchestrate things that are happening inside of a running application. And Warp is on the list. So if you want to set up Playwright MCP, it's right there. Alphabetical order, though. We should really rename ourselves to just ARP, and then we would be at the top, right above AMP. But letter W, Warp, there you are. So if you want to try it out, there you go. And that is another thing. Anti-Gravity is very, very, very new. And Warp is, it's built on Rust. It's been around for many years. We quality test everything that we ship. If you're looking for a nice, stable experience to try every agent, Warp is stable, man. Warp is just a rock. I have a friend who just calls it's my workhorse. I'm like, yeah, Warp is a workhorse, 100%. So if that's what you're looking for, there you go. It's not just the new hotness. It's just good at what it does. It's just why I love it. Yeah. So yeah. And I think there was another question about controlling other providers. You can, if you want to. Let's do it just for fun. I need to close out this live stream because I have a meeting to go to, but let me just do it for fun. Run the Claude CLI and ask it to echo hello world. Let's just start there. Because I have Claude installed. Let's do it. Let's run Claude inside of Warp. Let's do it. Oh no, you can do that? Shoot. Yeah, let me ask it. Oh, here we go. Yes. Allow. Proceed. Okay. Oh, it failed. Probably because it ran it incorrectly. How does this even work? Oh, the Claude update. Ugh. Yeah, I can't even get the Claude CLI running. I've had this issue for a long time. I know that that's not the solution. Dang it. All right, so I'm not going to blame Warp. I'm going to blame Claude, okay? Claude broke the demo. We were going to have Warp navigate Claude, and sadly, we cannot do that. What a shame. But you can, absolutely. Use Claude inside of Warp if you want to. I've had some people who are like using Claude to write code and using Warp's code review panel to review the code that Claude wrote. You can totally do that. You can mix and match if you want to. So if you wanted to try out Claude code inside of Warp, or that's what you're already using, maybe this is your first step. Maybe you've never used Warp before, but you do use a CLI. Maybe you want to try Warp to run that CLI, and then dip your toes into the code review panel to see if you like it. And then maybe you realize, oh, maybe Warp is good at comments. Maybe I'll use the Warp agent this time. You know, it's fun. Just try out what you want to try out. You can use Warp for free without a login, by the way, if you wanted to just use like all the terminal features I demoed. It's always there for you. Yeah. We're super open. We're super open at Warp. And we're super open to suggestions too. Use Claude Code in Warp all the time. Well, I mean, yeah, you do you, man. You do you. I get it. I get it. Claude Code's nice. We like Claude Code. But we like the Warp agent too. I invite you to give it a try. Ask Claude to write some code for you and ask Warp to resolve some commits. How about that? Use a hybrid. Ask Claude Code to do some stuff and then leave a comment. See if you like it. See if you like leaving a comment. It's a fun way to try it. Anyways, how to use Git with Warp? By running Git. You can just run the Git CLI, write rules to remember things. All right. I've got to go. I'm sure the questions are going to keep streaming in. I'm available everywhere on Twitter, as is the Warp team. So if you wanted to message me directly, you can totally do that. Or you can @ the team at warp.dev. Or you can join the Slack community, which I believe was shared above. I don't want to get the link wrong again. Let me see if it's working now. It is. Excellent. So if you wanted to join the Insider community, because you're a power user, you want to give feedback, you want to give bug reports, all that good stuff, definitely go ahead and join us there. There we go. So yeah, thank y'all. And I will see y'all on the next live stream. We're going to try to do more of these just to demo the features as they come out and just general purpose walking through Warp features so y'all understand it. So yeah, cheers. I hope y'all had a good time. I hope to see you on the next one.